Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, in this video right here, we're going to tackle something interesting because people who don't like boxing, or some people that see boxing as animalistic or inhumane, or just a horrible thing that you shouldn't be following or supporting. I'm going to explain to those people out there why boxing is much more than violence, because they say boxing is violence, people are paying for violence. And to an extent, that's true. Boxing is a violent sport, and it is a brutal sport, so we're not going to sit here and deny that and skate around it. We'll acknowledge that. But boxing is much more than violence, and I will even argue that boxing has done way more good for society and for people than it has done bad. And let me explain slowly, surely, and thoroughly here on True School Sports. Now, why is boxing more than violence? Okay, well, let's start off like this, okay? Boxing is the art of punching. It's a sport of punching. It's a sport of hitting and not getting hit. Okay, and when you go when you go to a boxing gym for the first time and you have to learn these skills, there's a lot that goes into it. There's footwork. There's you being able to move your head out the way. You gotta move your hips a certain way. You got to know how to throw punches, place punches. You gotta know how to, get your opponent to react how you want them to react, so you can land the punches that you want to land and fight the fight that you want to fight in the manner in which you want to fight it. And it takes years to learn these skills. It takes years to apply these skills at the highest level and do it in front of thousands upon millions of people. And some of first of all, to be a world championship caliber fighter, or just any sort of professional fighter of any sort of quality, is a very tough thing to do in boxing, because you're doing so many things that are tough. First of all, you're going to the boxing gym every single day. If you're a good fighter, you're going to the boxing gym every single day. You're training, you're sparring, you're keeping your body in shape, you're keeping your mind in shape. In the cases of fighters who are in training camp, most times the fighters can't have any sort of sex, so you're doing things that are not that are against your nature as a man. Okay. You're doing things that are against your nature. You're not even having sex with your wife, because there's this adage in boxing that women will weaken your legs. So by not having sex, you're actually keeping your body stronger overall. So there's a lot of things in boxing that go with it. The skills, the dedication, and most importantly, the most important trait that I think boxing has given many young fighters, many young men, millions of young men all over the world throughout many years, and women as well, that box, is discipline. It gives young people who decide to get, or anybody who decides to box, it gives them discipline. And that's one thing that's very hard to have, especially if you live in the Western country like USA or England, where you have a lot of things at your fingertips, while you're kind of very spoiled compared to the rest of the world. So it's hard to be disciplined when you always get whatever you want, when you have more amenities available to you than most places in the world. People are learning discipline in the boxing gym by coming every day, by watching their weight, by training hard, by just all those things. And they can take that quality and they can apply it to other facets of life, which I think is amazing. So there's that. And then another thing that boxing has given people is boxing has humbled many men. It's humbled many men, because a lot of times you might get kids who think they can fight, and they go to the boxing gym and they get beat up by somebody who can actually really fight, and it's turned bullies into good civilians and people of society. It gives people more respect for others, because let me tell you this: if you've been in a boxing ring and you've been in a war, and you fought somebody who is of equal or greater ability than you, and they've beat the hell out of you in the gym, or if they've really given you a tough sparring session, guess what? You're going to respect that person more for their abilities and for the difficulties they gave you in the ring, and you're gonna come out a better person for that. So you begin to respect people more, you begin to respect your neighbor more, and that's great. So you develop discipline, you develop respect. Boxing's also a sport of many cultures. So oftentimes when you go to a boxing gym, you're gonna meet people from all kinds of cultures. You're gonna meet people from all over the world in the boxing gym, and everybody's the same in a boxing gym. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what your religion is or anything like that. All that matters is, do you respect me and can you fight? And if you can do those two things, generally speaking, you get along in the boxing gym with anybody. So you learn discipline, you learn respect, and you learn the ability to deal with people from different backgrounds than you. So you learn the ability to deal with people. That's why many boxers have great personalities, because they have to deal with so many different types of cultures and people in the sport. So how can you say that a sport that's giving people all these things, all these qualities that you could apply to other areas of life, how could you say that it's giving that it's just violence and that we need to eradicate boxing? Because I've heard people who don't watch boxing, sometimes these feminist groups or people like that, they want to say boxing is animalistic and it's bad and we need to get rid of it, and it's giving people all these positive qualities. It's also boxing's also a poor people's sport. It's a poor man's sport. So a lot of the best fighters in the boxing history, they're not kids that come from the middle class. They're not kids that come from privileged backgrounds. Most people who have been successful in the history of boxing as fighters and even trainers are people from the poor, from the ghetto, from the low class, low income areas, and they're using boxing as a way to fight their way out of poverty and make a better life for themselves and a better life for those around them. So how can you say a sport that's giving people who have no opportunity to do probably there's no, for poor people who are uneducated, or for poor people that just want to fight, because that's all they know, because they grew up in the ghetto and that's what they grew up doing. For poor people, boxing is their meal ticket. It's their way out of a shitty life, and it gives them a life, not just a good life, but a great life. It gives them the ability to go from being dirt broke to filthy rich, and it allows those fighters to empower people around them. It allows those fighters to travel the world and understand that there's a bigger world out there than just where they're from. And this allows them to gain better perspective on themselves, so it makes them better people. How could you say a sport like that it needs to be eradicated? You can't say those things. And the sad part is the people that say those things have never been to a boxing gym, because if they've been to a boxing gym and they went to just a regular boxing and fitness class, not even sparring, just a regular boxing and fitness class, they wouldn't even last 3-4 minutes. So I'm not gonna sit here and listen to what boxing has done, how negative boxing is as a sport, how they say it's animalistic and it needs to be eradicated, because I've seen boxing take fat, obese kids and turn them into confident young studs of society. I've seen boxing take kids that were depressed and turn them to the most joyful people in the world, the life of the party type personalities. I've seen boxing take kids in the ghettoest of ghettos and give them a great life. I've seen boxing take kids that were doing bad in school, who were getting F's and D's and acting a fool in front of the teachers. I've seen boxing take those kind of kids and turn them into respectable young men, and sometimes women, at their schools, and their grades have went up, and now they're getting A's and B's, and they're more focused, and they have a clear-cut plan of what they want to do with their life. Boxing has given people clarity and a direction. So is boxing just more than violence? You bet your ass it is, and it's the greatest sport in the world. So anybody who has the audacity to say boxing is animalistic and it's not good and it's just violence and it needs to be eradicated, I have no time for them, because most people that say that aren't from the ghetto. Most people that say that don't even live near the ghetto, and most people that say that come from privileged backgrounds. Me personally, look, I didn't grow up directly in the ghetto. I mean, I'm from a city called Dania Beach in South Florida. It's about 45 minutes north of Miami. So I didn't grow up in the ghetto, but I grew up in West Dania Beach, and where I lived was sandwiched. I was in the middle. I was closer to the ghetto than I was the nice neighborhoods, but I was in the middle of both. I lived close enough to the ghetto that if I just took a 2-minute walk going south, I'm in the ghetto. You know, that's how close I was to the ghetto. If I go 3 or 4 minutes north, 5 minutes north, then I'm in a really rich area. You know, so I had an interesting upbringing, and you know, so I know what I know what it's like to grow up around that environment. I went to school with a lot of kids. You know, the high school I went to, Sabra High School. The high school was made up primarily of kids that were in the ghetto. You know, that came from the ghetto. So guess what? I've seen boxing and what it's done for some of my friends, people I went to school with, and I've seen it change lives. I've seen it do a lot of positive things, more positive than negative. And yeah, does boxing have negativities? Have negatives to it? Of course. You know, is the business practices of boxing the most ideal? Absolutely not. That's why fighters got to be smart when they get into it and know what they're getting into, and and do their due diligence and put the right people around them so they don't get taken advantage of by these promoters who are going to exploit them to the worst if they allow it. Also, with boxing, do fighters die in the ring at times? Yes, but it doesn't happen as much as these feminist groups and people who wanna eradicate boxing will lead you to believe. You know, for every boxer that's died in the ring, unfortunately, there's about 40 or 50 people that in some way, shape, or form have had their lives changed for the better, positively by boxing. I'll give you a personal story with me, like with boxing. When I first started boxing, I remember at the time I'm 25 now. I was 19 years old when I first went to a boxing gym, and I remember very clearly and very well that at that particular time in my life I was very depressed. I remember at that particular time in my life I wasn't as confident as I am now. I remember at that time in my life I lacked a sense of direction, and boxing gave me that sense of direction. It gave me that discipline. It gave me that sense of self. You know, I learned a lot about myself in the boxing gym, and ever since it's happened, it's made me a more confident person. It's allowed me to go after things that I've really wanted in life, and I've succeeded a lot more in things that I aspire to do after I started boxing, more than I did before I started boxing. So boxing has changed my life for the better. It's changed my outlook on everything for the better, and for most people, that is the case. I go to the boxing gym. So, is boxing more than violence? Absolutely, it is. It's a lot more than just violence. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about what I said. Make sure you take the time to subscribe. Like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys.